Hi guys, thanks for watching. So this is going to be my video about my trip to Nicaragua. I was really debating going to Nicaragua for a number of reasons, which I'm going to talk about at the end of the video. So if you're interested in learning about the political situation in Nicaragua, the safety as a woman traveling alone and things like that, maybe skip to the end. But besides the issues that the country is facing, overall it is a really beautiful country, a lot of diversity in the nature and a lot of things to do, a lot of really interesting activities that you wouldn't really find in another country, which I'm going to get into. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy.
So how I got to Nicaragua was pretty interesting actually. First of all, I just got local buses from San Salvador to San Miguel, which is a city in the east of El Salvador. And then from there, I got another bus to La Union, which is a small port city. And from La Union, I got this boat basically across the water to Nicaragua. So Nicaragua and El Salvador have a water border. The only other way to get to Nicaragua from El Salvador is to take the bus, but the bus goes through Honduras because there's no land border between Nicaragua and El Salvador. So I recommend taking the boat. It was also really beautiful, like the views were really nice and it was very relaxing. It only took about 2 hours. So once I got to the border control, I went through the border and we had to pay like 15 USD or something like that in tax. I was originally going to get a local bus to Leon, a city in the west of Nicaragua, but instead I met this German guy who was also on the boat with me and he suggested we hitchhike. So we ended up on this tractor thing for a while. When the tractor had to go in a different direction, we got a ride from the police, which I didn't record for obvious reasons. And after that, we ended up in a truck. And the truck took us the rest of the way to a small city that was close to Leon. And then from there, we just got a local chicken bus to Leon. In general, I highly advise against hitchhiking, especially if you're traveling alone as a woman. I think it's the worst idea ever to do that alone. But if I'm with another person, especially if it's a man or if I'm in a group of people, I feel pretty comfortable to hitchhike. The people we met were so nice and it was such a good experience. So I'm really grateful I met that German guy. So in Leon, I stayed in this really cute hostel. It's called Hostel El Jardin. So it's like garden in Spanish. So they had this garden in the middle of the hostel and it was really cheap. It was like €6 a night or something like that. Leon is a cute city, but I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of time there. I think like a couple of days is enough. I was there for like 2 days and it was fine. It's nice to just walk around. There's a lot of markets and there's some nice churches, some nice bars, things like that, you know. Almost 40 degrees and 90% humidity. Why do I do this to myself again? I think one of the nicest sights in Leon is this church here. It's a cathedral and you just pay a couple of dollars to go on the roof. You can get a really good view of the city and it's so beautiful. It's known for this white architecture that's kind of corroding. So I definitely recommend visiting that church. I think that was like the most interesting thing. So the next part I'm really excited to talk about because I think that this was probably one of the highlights of my entire time in Latin America so far. So in Nicaragua, they have this sport that's called volcano boarding. It's kind of similar to snowboarding, except you sit on the board and you slide down the side of a volcano. To be honest, I'm not sure if it's like a registered sport, but it is legal and it's so much fun. It's the only country in the world where you can do this. And they bring you to Cerro Negro, which it's like Black Mountain or Black Volcano, very close to Leon. So you can book a tour from Leon. So the tour that I booked, it costs like $35 or something like that. But this also included a party bus afterwards, which was so fun. So we got a lot of free alcohol and then we got the transport and everything. So it was worth it. But if you want to do a version that doesn't include alcohol, if you don't like partying, you can do a cheaper one for like 20 or 25 USD with a different company. The company I did it with was a hostel. They're called Bigfoot Hostel. So basically you sit at the top of the volcano and you slide down on a board. It's so much fun, and it's really not as unsafe as it looks. Like, I really enjoyed it. After that, they brought us to this like local farm for dinner, and we toasted marshmallows. There was just like all these local kids running around and talking to us. It was so cute. They all wanted to speak English. And then we had the party bus, which was a little bit intense. Definitely don't recommend it if you don't like partying or you don't like alcohol in general. Even our guide was going crazy. Like, the main guy here forcing everyone to drink was our guide. So after all the excitement of the volcano boarding and with a horrific hangover, I decided to get the chicken bus the next day to Las Peñitas. This is a very, very chill place, very remote. There's not even a lot of shops there. It's just by the beach. It has like some bars, some really chill hostels. You can go surfing if you want, and you can also do like these excursions to see wildlife. It was really nice. It was just really relaxed. I wasn't working for those couple of days, so I just sort of chilled out. Yeah, the main activity I did one of the days was I rented a kayak and I kayaked along a river to try to go to this, it's sort of like a national park or a wildlife reserve, but it's in the forests that are on the sides of the river. And you can see a lot of cool wildlife in there, like a lot of crustaceans, a lot of different spiders and insects. And sometimes you can also see turtles, which unfortunately I didn't see because typically it wasn't the season. I also ended up getting completely lost and took way longer than I was meant to. But it was really nice. So after Las Peñitas, I had to get a bus back to Leon, just the same chicken bus, from Leon to Managua, the capital city of Nicaragua, and then from there to Granada. It's like this small city. Granada is a very beautiful city, but I didn't actually have a great time there, which I talk about at the end of the video. I just dealt with a lot of harassment and things like that. I didn't get to see a lot of the city either because I was working a lot when I was there. However, from there, I went to the Treehouse, which is probably one of the more famous parts of Nicaragua, or something that a lot of tourists go to. So the Treehouse is basically, well, a treehouse. That's a hostel in the middle of the jungle. It's really amazing. It's just in the middle of this local community, which they used to do a lot of voluntary work for. And there's really nice wildlife everywhere. You can hear howler monkeys and things like that. So every Friday, the hostel has like a party that a lot of people come to support the Treehouse and the voluntary initiatives. So it was really nice, just a lot of local DJs combined with foreign DJs. And then I also spent 2 nights there in the Treehouse. So I had a really good time and I met a lot of cool people there. It's just a really nice atmosphere. The Treehouse, I got another crowded chicken bus with a couple of the guys that were also at the treehouse and going to the same place as me. My last stop in Nicaragua was San Juan del Sur, which is a pretty touristy place. So I would say it's probably a little bit more expensive in comparison to the other cities. Not by that much, but just a small bit. And yeah, it's more touristy. You're going to meet more foreigners there and things like that. I had to do a bit of work when I was there, but I spent a lot of time at the beach. The beaches are really nice there, and they have a lot of nice cafes and things like that. If you're working remotely, the Wi-Fi is pretty good because it's so touristy. One of the main reasons people come to San Juan is to go surfing. It's the same with another small town that's close to San Juan on the Pacific coast of Nicaragua called Popoya. Most people I met were coming here to go surfing. I don't surf, but I still just enjoyed chilling on the beach. However, the waves are really high, so it's not the best beach for swimming. One of the days I also went to this bar, which was really nice. A lot of people were dancing, which was cute, and they gave us marshmallows to toast, which was so random. I've never experienced that in a bar before, but it was really nice. There's a lot of bars down by the sea, like just by the coast if you walk along it.
So something I really want to highlight before I end this video is that Nicaragua is the first country that I actually felt unsafe in here in Central America. The reason for this was because I did receive a lot of harassment. I did meet a lot of local Nicaraguans who were super nice. I met a lot of girls my age as well who I really got on with. The issue I had was mostly from men. This was worse in certain cities. So one of the cities I didn't really talk about in this video because I didn't have a lot to say about it is called Granada. Granada is a really beautiful city, and I do encourage people to visit there. The reason I didn't speak about it or have a section in this video dedicated to it was because when I was there, I was working a lot. So first of all, I didn't get to do a lot of stuff in the city. I didn't have a lot of time. And also, due to the amount of harassment that I dealt with, I did feel kind of unsafe and I didn't go outside a lot. I did deal with a lot of harassment in Granada, even in the middle of the day, like in broad daylight, just walking to the grocery store. It was like 5 minutes from my Airbnb. Men were constantly catcalling me, coming up and talking to me. One man even tried to touch me, and I did get away, but of course that was a bit traumatizing. In other parts of Nicaragua, I did deal with harassment too, but it wasn't as intense. So I got a bit of catcalling and like some men kind of like flirting with me and stuff, but I didn't have anything to the extent that I had in Granada. In Granada, it was kind of next level. Also in Nicaragua, if you're there as a foreigner, especially like a Westerner, and if you look like me, you're going to have a lot of people staring at you. Not in a harassment kind of way. I had this even when I was with other people that I met like at my hostels, and like I said, I met this group of girls that were from Managua, the capital of Nicaragua, and they were also traveling, so I went out with them a few times. And people just were always staring at me because, especially the kids and stuff like that, because it's interesting for them, right, to see someone. So sometimes it's kind of difficult to differentiate if the person is going to harass you or do something to make you feel uncomfortable, or if they're genuinely just interested because you're a foreigner. I met a lot of really friendly Nicaraguans and really friendly locals who were just really excited to meet someone from another country, so that's great. However, yeah, I would urge you to be careful if you are a woman going there alone. Don't walk alone at night. Because I had more intuition about danger there than I did in Guatemala, El Salvador. Just be careful, and if you don't think you're going to be able to handle a lot of harassment, emotionally handle it, I wouldn't recommend going to Granada. That being said, I did meet other women traveling that went to Granada, and they said that they didn't have problems, but they weren't alone. They were like in couples or in groups. So yeah, that's just something to be aware of. It's sad that we have to deal with this, but it's part of the game that we're playing, unfortunately, if you're traveling a lot alone. Next thing I want to mention is the political situation in Nicaragua. I can't talk a lot about this in general. It's a situation that's very hush-hush, so I would recommend doing your own research and try to read a lot of different sources online. If you're a tourist, this isn't going to affect you as much. Actually, if anything, it's going to benefit you, which is sinister, but at the same time, it's the way it is in a lot of politically corrupt or economically corrupt countries. For us as Western tourists, it benefits us because the costs are lower and things like that, and tourism is valued because it helps the economy, but it's the local people that tend to suffer. So like I said, I did meet a group of girls from Managua who told me some stories about protests there and things that the bad things that happen at protests and how these things never get published in the news. It is essentially considered a dictatorship. So yeah, definitely do your research before you go there. If you're a tourist though, you're going to be absolutely fine. Like, I didn't even notice the political situation that much, except for what I heard from the local people and how it's affected them. You're also going to see the flags for the Socialist Party all over Nicaragua. You're going to see this more than the national flag. So it's a bit confusing when you first get there. At first you think that that's their flag, but it's not. It's the political party. I don't recommend going there with any political intentions. Like, don't join protests. Don't try to argue with the police if something happens, and if you get into trouble, it's not going to end well. Try really hard not to lose your passport, because I don't know what the situation is with other countries and how much help you can get in Nicaragua if something goes wrong. I don't know how good the contacts are in the embassies and things like that. But yeah, it's something that you should do your own research on. I'm not going to talk about it here a lot because, well, first of all, I don't think I know enough to talk about it. And second of all, like I said, it's something that's very hush-hush, unfortunately. Like I mentioned earlier, this treehouse that I stayed at, the Treehouse Hostel, they actually told us a lot about how the political situation has impacted their business over the years, which was really interesting to learn about. And at one point they were a non-profit organization, and they actually got shut down because all of the non-profit organizations in Nicaragua have been shut down. So if they're not paying tax and if they're not making a profit, then they can't stay open. So they explained to us how this really impacted the local community and the things that they were doing, because they had a lot of volunteer projects. They were helping kids, like teaching in schools, and they were helping raise money for poor people, giving them food, like food banks, this kind of thing, homeless services, and now they're not able to do that anymore. So if you want to learn more about the political situation and if you travel there, I really urge you to stay at that hostel, even if it's just for like one night or something, because you can learn a lot there. But again, they're not allowed to talk about it that much, which kind of tells you all you need to know. If the local people aren't allowed to talk about what's happening in their country, that tells you all you need to know, in my opinion. The last thing is just like the sort of practical stuff. So the costs. Costs were kind of similar to what I said in my Guatemala video. It was a little bit cheaper than El Salvador. El Salvador was more expensive. It was kind of around the same as Guatemala. So they kind of have the similar system with the local buses, the chicken buses. The chicken bus, depending on where you're going, it could be anywhere between like 1 and 5 USD. Unless you're going to a different city, then it can be a bit more. It's super humid on the buses. It's really, really hot. I mentioned about Leon especially being really hot, like the west of Nicaragua. So be prepared for that. If you take the buses, you're going to be like overheating a lot, but you do save a lot of money. The boat that I took from El Salvador to Nicaragua, that was probably the most expensive transport I paid for in Nicaragua. That was like 50 USD because it was a tourist company. From there, you can, like I mentioned earlier with the hitchhiking that I did, you can wait around to get that bus, or you can get a transfer with that same tourist company, but it's really expensive. It's like 25 USD, and it's not really worth it, to be honest. You can just wait for the bus if you're not comfortable hitchhiking and pay like, I don't know, 2 USD or something. Hostels and Airbnb, again, were kind of similar to Guatemala. So the Airbnb I stayed in, I wasn't the happiest with, I'll be honest. It was the first time I stayed in an Airbnb when I was working, like talking a lot and tutoring, where it wasn't like a private apartment or a private studio or something. It was like a shared Airbnb, so I had my own room. But the problem is that when I'm talking, I speak really loudly. So sometimes it can like disturb other guests. No one said anything to me, and I don't think anyone cared. It wasn't that busy there, but I still felt a little bit uncomfortable. Also, the Wi-Fi was not good at all. I had to use my hotspot all of the time because everyone was sharing the Wi-Fi, so it wasn't great for video calls. Also, in Nicaragua, there are a lot of power outages, especially now because it's the rainy season. It's not so bad. Like normally it just goes out for like 5 or 10 minutes, or sometimes it's literally like a second. Like there was times I would be in the middle of a call and it would go out literally for like 5 seconds, then it would it would come back again. So it wasn't so bad. It's manageable, but just be aware of that, because I think the rain was also impacting the Wi-Fi connection, the wind and everything like that. There's a lot of storms. So yeah, I think that that's pretty much everything. I don't think I've left anything out. Overall, I loved Nicaragua. I think it was probably the most exciting place that I went to because of like the volcano boarding, and like you can go surfing, and there's just so many different activities to do, and the biodiversity is amazing there. You can also go to the north, to the Caribbean, which is something I'm quite sad I didn't get a chance to do, but I didn't have a lot of time. But yeah, overall, I think it's an amazing country. It's an amazing country with amazing people that's really suffering right now, a lot politically and economically. So please bear that in mind if you go there. Try to support the local people and local businesses as much as you can. Try to be sympathetic. Be careful about what you say in public. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. The next video is going to be about my time in Colombia, and I just left Colombia and it was amazing. So I'm really excited to make that video. Bye.